that jumpin', yeah. It's that jumpin', start like 23. Just that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. Just that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. This that jumpin', right around all of my trees. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. Just that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. This that jumpin', right around all of my dreams. I be ballin'.
What's up, everybody? Good evening, and welcome into the debut episode of TnT's Dynamite Takes right here on the Undefeated Sports Network. As always, I am Andrew Tarbill. To my left is our guy, Vince Turtle Mucci. Hashtag the boys are back. It's been a while since we've got to do a show together, so looking forward to being able to talk all things Chicago sports with you. And we got a nice lineup set up for tonight. We got our guy Lester Wiltfong Jr. from Windy City Gridiron joining us momentarily. And then later in the show, we've got Gary Young joining us as well. So big show for you guys tonight. We're going to recap the draft, talk a little bit about the Cubs maybe towards the end of the show, but we're going to be a little football heavy given the guests we have joining us tonight. So happy to be back with you all. Vince, how you doing, brother? It's been a while.
Man, I'm good. It's been a real long time. Just glad to be on here and talking sports. And, the fact the Cubs are actually worth talking about is a nice thing to hear. Change of pace.
That's wild, isn't it?
Years. It really is. See them do what they're doing, and got to have that. We had our draft special last week, and we're just keep rolling with the momentum.
Absolutely, guys. So obviously a lot of big moves in the draft. We covered the first round here live on Thursday night, and then second through seventh round still very interesting for the Bears. A lot to talk about. So with that being said, Vince, I say we go ahead and bring in our guest. Right now, we got Lester Wiltfong Jr. joining us from the Windy City Gridiron. Lester, what's up, man? It's been a while. How you doing?
It's been a minute, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing well. Hanging in there, man. Life happens. Trying to get back on a steady schedule here, and with the launch of the new show, we couldn't think of a better first guest. So we appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it. Nice. I'm always willing to come on for you guys.
Appreciate that.
We definitely appreciate that.
So obviously a lot of big news transpiring with the Bears over the last week. So before we dive into the individual picks, Lester, tell us how you're feeling overall with the Bears draft selections, and give us some good, the bad, and the ugly, because I know you've probably got one pick that you weren't a fan of.
No, the draft did not go how most fans thought, right? I mean, everyone was expecting a big trade up. There was a lot of rumors, a lot of buzz, a lot of smoke out there. It turned out to be a bunch of garbage. It's just kind of being spread by other side. The Bears were content. They were content to stay at 10. And, while tight end was talked about, the other guy was the guy that got all the buzz, Tyler Warren. But I think Loveland's a good fit for what they want to do. He gives them more options as far as where he can line up. Overall, polls seem to kind of stay true to his board. I think in years past, he may have reached for a running back early if one of those guys got sniped, which it seemed like happened a couple times. So I think that Ryan Poles in year 4 now, he's learning a little bit. He's realizing, hey, let's just let this board come to me. He traded back a couple times, picked up another draft pick next year, which is always good to do. Right. So I think Poles, again, we'll find out in a couple years, but on the surface right now, I think it was a pretty good draft class overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to what you said there about Tyler Warren, it's funny, you see the reports the day after that teams were calling to try to potentially trade up for Loveland, and he was a guy that kind of gained some momentum there the last day, which seems to happen every year. There's that one guy that kind of rises up the board. So really interesting to see for the Bears. I like the way that he's an opposite of Cole Kmet. I mean, I think they will complement each other really well, especially we all know Ben Johnson likes to run the most 2 tight end sets in the NFL. So now you have your other your 1A, 1B guys in Loveland and Cole Kmet, right? So should be exciting to see what happens with that. Vince, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lester said it best. I think old Ryan Poles a couple years ago, he would have. Oh man, I really wanted Genty. I didn't get him. Oh, a couple of running backs go. Let me just force a pick here. And I actually heard an interview. I'm not sure who interviewed him, but I heard an interview with Ryan Poles after the draft, and he was asked about that. They asked him, did it seemed like a couple times running backs were on your guys' card, and by the time it got to you, they were gone. And he said, when that happens, there's these pockets of positions. And he said, and sometimes you just kind of find yourselves in between the pockets and never really in it. And he said that you really have two choices. You either force a pick there and you wind up taking somebody that you probably wouldn't take there after the draft. You're like, oh man, I kind of forced something there rather than just let it come to him. And he said, and not only that, you pass up really, really talented players. And I was really excited to see them go out and get a Luther Burden in the second round. A lot of guys had him in the top 15 on their board. A lot of guys had him as the number 1 or 2 receiver on the board. So it was nice to see a guy, and I don't know how much was Ryan Poles maturing and how much was Ben Johnson kind of in his ear telling him like, okay, slow down. We're okay. Like we don't need to go force anything. We got guys here. But I think, that's a guy that I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about him in a little bit, but I think it's a guy that reminds you a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and does some of the things that really the Bears don't have anybody that does. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets worked in.
Right. When you hear a comparison to Deebo Samuel, it's never a bad thing. And that's exactly what you're hearing with Luther Burden. So as Vince alluded to, Lester, a lot of people had him on their boards going top 15. And then he ended up falling. What do you like about Luther Burden and what he can bring to this Bears offense day one?
Yeah, it's that yard jet for the catchability, right? I mean, when the ball's in his hands, he's electric. I mean, you saw that happen at College, Missouri. They kind of schemed up touches for him. They gave him some jet sweeps. I mean, I think he carried the ball out of the backfield a couple times. So, they knew, to get him on the screens. I know Bears fans hate those slip screens and those bubble screens, but I mean, that's offense. I mean, that's what happens these days. I think the problem is we, as Bears fans, we had a play caller that didn't know what to do besides those. Like there are things you can do off the bubble screen look, off the slip screen look. There are things you can marry to that, concepts you can put in with that. There are RPOs you can put with that. So I think with Ben Johnson, he'll understand that. And I think that's not going to be like, okay, it's time to get Burden the ball. Let's just hurry up and do it. No, they're going to set that up. They're going to set it up with something earlier in the game. So I think you're going to see that. And then you mentioned the slot receiver ability. Did a lot of that at Missouri. And you know what? I think before this pick was made, a lot of fans thought, oh, Rome Odunze might get a lot of work out of the slot. Well, he still may, but I think now that you have a guy like Burden coming in, he can learn your wide receiver 3 role. Last year they had Rome Odunze learning all 3 positions. I'm not sure that's the best way to go for a rookie receiver. I think with a guy like Burden, let him lock in at wide receiver 3. You got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze at X and the Z. And then if you want to get Rome in the slot, fine. And then let's motion him into the slot. Let's move Burden. Let's get him out there. You can do things with formations that you can put guys wherever you want, wherever the best mismatch is. And, Burden now with the, 3 receiver sets, Loveland now with 2 receiver sets. There's really nothing Ben Johnson won't be able to do with this offense from a schematic standpoint.
Yeah. And as you said there, from a schematic standpoint, you've added so much versatility in that first and second round pick that I think it'll be really interesting to see what they do. Some people are concerned that there won't be enough targets to go around, and that might create some pressure. But I think a little friendly competition is good, right? And Ben Johnson has kind of preached that since he walked in the door, that no one's spot's safe, so to speak, and they'll be fighting at every position for a starting role. And I think it'll be interesting to see what Luther adds to the Bears offense. Obviously, Rome Odunze started taking a little bit of a step there towards the end of last year, so it'll be interesting to see through maybe the first 4 or 5 weeks how the ball distribution is between him and DJ Moore. Obviously, you paid DJ Moore over $100 million to come in here and be your guy. Largest contract, I believe, that the Bears have ever signed when they did that deal with DJ. So Obviously, you want to make sure everyone gets their touches, but I think that friendly competition is only going to strengthen that receiver room moving forward. And what the options Caleb Williams has. I mean, obviously, Keenan Allen's probably not going to be retained. He's going to go somewhere. I'm surprised that hasn't been made official already. But even without him, I feel really good about where this receiver room's at. And really, you've got a guy in Loveland who's got receiver-like ability at the tight end position. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. Moving into the trenches, I know a lot of fans were not happy that we didn't take an offensive lineman in the first round. Obviously, Kelvin Banks going off the board at 9 to the Saints kind of threw a wrench, I think, in the plan for Ryan Poles and company. I'm sure if he was there at 10, that's who we probably would have ended up with. With that being said, we go offensive line shortly thereafter with Ozzie. I'm not going to say his last name. Trapillo. Bring Ozzie in. He's a guy that was pretty versatile in college. I think that was a C+ rating by most experts at that point when we took him. I guess with the offensive upgrades that we've made on the line in the offseason with the acquisitions of Jonah Jackson and Thuney, how are we feeling about this offensive line going into the season, Lester?
Yeah, I mean, I think they got to figure out left tackle, and I think that's a big reason why Ozzie was drafted. I mean, sure, he played right tackle the last couple of years at Boston College, but he started at left side before that, right? So he has some left tackle experience. And look, if you don't think he's been playing left tackle since he graduated Boston College, you're crazy. That's all he's been probably repping at. I know I saw some film from him at the Senior Bowl practices playing left tackle. I'm sure every top 30 visit he took, he was playing left tackle, because teams want to see if he can do both. They know he can play the right side. Okay, let's see how you look athletically. Let's see how your timing is and when you throw your hands, how you look on the left side. And from judging by Ryan Poles' comments today, I think he did a hit on ESPN 1000. He said that's where they're going to start him at. They'll start him at left tackle, especially with Braxton Jones still rehabbing. They're going to get a really good look at Ozzie and Kieran Amagaji this offseason. But Ozzie has the upside to lock that spot down. So, I mean, I would not be surprised if he ends up winning that left tackle job as a rookie.
So going back to Amagaji for a second, do you think some of the struggles he had last year were based on the coaching and the scheme fit? I guess, do you think Dan Rashar is the guy that can get the most out of him is ultimately my question.
Yeah, I think he's a better O-line coach. I did not like Chris Morgan. There was some weird things I saw his first year in Chicago as far as what he's doing with some of in the run game stuff. The way they were handling stunts. So there's just some stuff I didn't understand. I couldn't figure it out. I'm doing a sack watch right every week, and there's some I just can't figure out what he's trying to do. I talk to some guys that I trust that understand O-line play, better than I do. They don't understand what he was doing. I just didn't understand how he survived the offensive purge there a couple of years ago when they got rid of Getsy and everyone else. Why is he the guy that stayed? The O-line was not very good. So, yeah, I like Rochar. I think he's a much better O-line coach. You look at Kieran Amagaji, he should not have seen the field last year. I mean, coming from Yale, okay, with that injury,
right?
I guess he was healthy enough to play, which is fine. They didn't want to redshirt him because, that's you got to have an actual injury. You can't just fake it. I mean, you could try, but, you risk, fines and stuff. So he was there. He should have been your OL 9 or OL 10 all year on the roster, inactive every week. But, injuries happen. They had to play him, and that kind of was a story of the O-line last year. He was really, really bad. Like, I think it was the Vikings game where he played and they just, he kept giving up pressures one after the other. He had no answer. And it was just he had a couple moments. Again, Washington, he was okay, but when he was thrown out there, he looked awful. But that's not who he is as a player. I think there's still some upside there. I think he has upside as your swing guy. But talent's there, traits are there, athleticism is there. Just his technique was so all over the place last season.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, Rashar obviously is a much better offensive line coach. So refining technique will be something that he focuses on with the guys. And I think he'll have some success there. Again, Chris Morgan, if you look at the offensive lines that he fielded over the past few seasons, wasn't ever really a bright spot on the offensive line. I mean, obviously Darnell Wright being your number one pick there on the right side, but aside from that, I mean, Braxton Jones is a 5th round pick, and I think he's played up to his value for sure at times, but competition's healthy, and again, to have that competition at the offensive line is important because we saw Caleb get sacked 60 times last season.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can cut that number way down in 2025. As far as the later picks in the draft go, Lester, you want to give us some quick hits, your thoughts on the guys from rounds 3 and back?
Yeah, I mean, with a guy like Shamar Turner, he was he played edge earlier in his career at Texas A&M, and then when they picked up Scrouton through the transfer portal, they kind of kicked him inside. So he kind of bulked up a little bit. I think we may have even heard, again, Ryan Poles alluded to today that they may play him off the edge on occasion. It's up to Dennis Allen to figure out, of course, but he has that skill set. He's long, he's 6'3". I think he was 290. So we'll see how he kind of checks in here as a rookie, but I think he has that skill set. And you watch his film, man, his film's fun, right? He's like, he plays really angry. Like he's really like yeah, exactly. I mean, you need some of those guys that are just a bad dude, right? Like he's just an ass. Like he's out there to cause trouble. He talks some trash, maybe plays to the echo of the whistle every time. So you need those guys out there. I think with Turner, he's definitely going to be in the rotation as a rookie, and really bring something, bring an attitude to that defensive line.
So to that, we made some moves on the defensive line. Obviously, the acquisition of Grady Jarrett, a huge piece. Obviously, he's 31, 32 now. I believe he just had his birthday. So in the latter half of his career, but he had a really good season last year with Atlanta. And going back and watching tape, excited to see what he'll do for this Bears defense. You added the player from the Colts on for a defensive end. Vince, you want to say his name?
I just call him Dio. I don't even try.
Dio Odangbo, right? It's Odangbo.
Yeah, Odangbo, yes, I believe.
I like him. I think we talked last week, Lester, with Eric. We were talking about how they've talked about sliding him inside on pass rushing downs and play him inside. So I really like the versatility of this defensive line that they're putting together. It's not like a bunch of guys that, okay, this guy can only play here. This guy can only play here. They like to move Montez Sweat around and kind of get those preferred matchups. But then you've got, whether it's Dio coming from the other side, or like you talked about Turner playing out there, or Booker or whoever, and then we were talking about last week, they were talking about playing Dexter out there as well.
Yeah.
So it just kind of frees up a lot of just different looks that you could get from this defensive line to kind of keep offensive coordinators guessing on where they're coming from, what they're bringing. And, as Dennis Allen's known for that get after the quarterback mentality defense that I think this Bears defense has never had. I was talking with somebody at work today. He was like, man, I just miss that Lovie Smith and that soft ass cover 2 defense. And it's like, well, that's not what they're going to be playing now. Like they're going to get after it. And it's just kind of fun to see them add pieces. And I think, a big part of it was the offseason making those trades and signing Dahlman and checking those boxes before you got to the draft left yourself a lot of room to kind of go wherever this draft went.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the fact that they went ahead and, addressed so many needs in free agency, that's kind of why Poles was probably content to let the board come to him. He didn't have to reach. I want to circle back to you mentioned that you talked about that interview with you talked about the pockets of players. And when I heard the interview, the first thing I thought of was his first year, he reached for Bayless Jones in the 3rd round because a bunch of receivers went off the board. He figured I better get my guy now or I'm not going to get him. Fast forward now to this last draft. And like you said, a couple running backs fall off the board. He could have reached, but he's like, nope, I'm going to let my board play out. We'll let things come to us. And he ended up getting some pretty good football players, except for 4th round. No one knows what's happened with Ruben Hippolyte, but he was on their board at that point. That's the one pick fans are like, what the hell's going on here? But I mean, look, if the worst case scenario for him is he is a core special teamer, playing 70% of those special team snaps, occasionally filling in and at the weak side linebacker spot. If that's all he gives you as a 4th-round pick, he's ahead of the game. It's a 4th-round pick. Those guys aren't always superstars. So if that's what they're drafting him for, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. But, he was one of the fastest linebackers in college football last year, team captain. He called the plays. He had the green dot, so that's something he had going for him. High football IQ. Just the film wasn't really all over the place. But then you got to look at, how was Maryland's defense up front? I didn't scout those guys. I'm not sure how many of those guys got drafted. Maybe that was just a really bad defense. Right. And he was doing what he could. He led the team in tackles, so that's something for him. So who knows what'll happen there when it's all said and done. I
was talking to my dad, and he was saying that he saw an interview. I'm not sure who it was with or if it was just something he had heard, but he heard that they're actually going to look at playing him at safety as well, because he is kind of on the smaller side for linebacker, but he's so damn fast. So a little added depth there, especially with no one knowing what's going on with Brisker and, if he's going to be able to make it through the whole season or, God forbid, worse than that with the concussions. But I was wondering if not Hippolyte, then who fills in that other linebacker spot? They didn't bring back Jack Sanborn. I think the first couple of years, I think fans kind of really fell in love with just his style of play and, that
jackhammer,
average guy type player, but
Lake Zurich High School. Come on.
Yeah, the whole story. Yeah. So now with him being gone, if not Hippolyte, who fills into that spot? Because that is, another glaring hole that this defense, or one of the few glaring holes this defense does have as far as starters go, is who's going to line up in that spot.
I think there could be another move made. I mean, we'll see how it happens in OTAs and camp, but I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. I couldn't figure it out last year. Amin, the special teams ace.
I know what you're talking about.
He's been around a long time. This, I think, could be his 5th or 6th year in the league. He has not played much on defense, but he's a guy that probably could come in. I kind of remember when the Bears got Sam Acho a few years ago, they signed him as a core special teamer. That's really all he did. And then when his number was finally called, he kind of filled in there at the outside linebacker spot. So maybe with Amin, he's a guy that kind of come in. His experience will shine through. Again, we talk about a good athlete. He's a really good athlete, strong side linebacker. They're only going to play 25, 30% of the reps anyway. So you got a guy that kind of go there. Plus, they got Noah Sewell. We'll kind of see how this regime feels about Noah Sewell. And then I think they talked about, I forget who it was, but Hippolyte may be in the mix as well. I think he may project more to the weak side because of his speed to back up TJ Edwards. But again, you're only talking 30% of the reps because they're going to be a nickel most of the time. So maybe he's a guy that pushes for the Sam.
We got a comment here from our guy, Angelo. Are you still concerned with the lack of pressure from the guys that are there? No guy on this line was top 42 in pressures last year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you would like to have a little more suddenness, right, from your edge guys. I mean, the only really speed guy on the roster is Booker coming in the year 2. But here's the thing. Dennis Allen will blitz. We'll see him bring the nickel. I think last year the Saints nickelback, I'm pretty sure he had like 4 sacks in the first 3 games. And I only know this because I have him on my dynasty team. So, they'll send the nickel, when they can. So I think Kyler Gordon will be really active. And then the other thing with Dennis Allen is he'll create pressure. He'll run a lot of stunts up front. He will have guys picking guys to get them free. He's not afraid to do that, especially if on third downs. He's gonna do what he has to do to get pressure. So, between the guys they added, between Montez Sweat, probably hoping to bounce back, I think someone will emerge as their guy as far as the sacks go. But again, if not, they're going to be a pass rush by committee, a lot of stunts, a lot of games, more blitzes than we're used to seeing. So I think it should be a fun defense to watch. You look at Dennis Allen; he's always had top 10 defenses everywhere he goes. So, as excited as I am to see Ben Johnson, I really am excited to see what Dennis Allen can do with this defense.
Well, and I think the pairing of those two together is so special as well, right? Because you got a guy in Dennis Allen who's been really successful everywhere he's gone as a DC, and then he's obviously got some head coaching experience on top of that. So you've got really a strong shoulder for Ben Johnson to lean on as in his first year as a head coach. And then really the staff as a whole that this Bears team has managed to assemble. Your running backs coach is a guy who was a head coaching candidate 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's really, really going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But I don't think there's really, from my side, there's not a negative knock on the team at this point. I'm just ready for camp to start so we can start see these guys out on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see, a lot of things kind of fix themselves just based on the staff from top to bottom. You look at Ben Johnson, then he added Antoine Randall and JT Barrett and Eric Bieniemy, and then you look at the other side, you got Al Harris with Dennis Allen and some of these guys. Like, I just think they're going to be, like Lester said, you may not see a guy that is like, a 20 sack a year guy, but if you've got a handful of guys, they're all at, 8, 10, 11 sacks, like this defense could really, as a whole, have that high number that you're looking for, although you don't have that like dominant pressure guy or rush guy. And with the, you got Grady Jarrett and you got multiple players at each position. You're not looking at, we have a really good starting 4 and then nothing after that. Like everybody they bring in is going to be fresh because of how many guys they have.
Absolutely. I think it'll be really exciting to see Grady Jarrett and Montez Sweat on the same defensive line. I think a lot of these guys, especially as you alluded to, Vince, the depth pieces that we have are going to cause Montez Sweat to have a higher win rate this season, as well as Dennis Allen scheming him open. It'll be really interesting to see. Lester, we do appreciate your time as always. Thank you for.
Hold on, I got 2 questions for Lester before you let him go.
All right, you go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
I got to know, what do you think about the running back from
Kyle Monagai? Yeah, I mean he's I didn't know much about him. I knew really nothing about him. I saw a clip on Twitter before he was drafted, but after he got picked, dug into him. Our guy Jacob Infante said, he's a good player. I think he had him like top 150, so he kind of got pretty good value there where they picked him. I seen him comp to Pacheco, his former Rutgers, classmate there. So this is a guy that he runs hard, right? I mean, he doesn't have the breakaway speed, but he's short, he's shifty, he's elusive. He kind of looks like a jacked up Tariq Cohen. When you look at him, just kind of has that stature, really good contact balance. And the key to him, though, man, when you're a rookie running back, you got to pass block, right? Or you're not going to get on the field. But this guy, he may have been one of the best pass blocking tailbacks in college football last year. So I'm not sure he's going to get a ton of reps. But I think he has the makeup to kind of come in there and push Roschon Johnson, who right now looks like your number 2. I think he'll be able to come in and get some good reps there.
Absolutely. As you said, I hadn't watched a lot of film prior to the Bears selecting him on Monagai, but I did watch some clips after, did a little bit of scouting, and yeah, I think it'll be some healthy competition there again at the running back position.
Yeah, I saw a video. I saw a video of him the other day. I don't know where it came from or where it was posted. It might have been on Twitter or something, but I saw a video of him pass blocking, just literally like putting dudes into the ground, pass blocking. I was like, oh my goodness.
What I was alluding to is, do you think the Bears go after another free agent running back before the season starts, namely a guy that Cleveland doesn't want anymore in Nick Chubb?
If it was me, I would go after him, because he's not going to cost you a lot of money. He's going to be really, really inexpensive as far as, the potential productivity there. Bring him in, man. 1-year deal.
Right.
Put him in the mix. If he doesn't pan out, then you let him go when you come around to the season. But he seems like he has a chip on his shoulder, right? I mean, these videos you're seeing all the squat videos, the jumping over hurdles. He's been doing this now for the last month, and the only thing is a lot of the buzz we're hearing is coming from the Cleveland side of things. So you kind of wonder how much is that is just his people drumming up interest, keeping his name in the news, or if there's really something going on there. But then you see, Louis Riddick kind of alludes to it. So it's hard to tell, right? With these big media guys, are they just kind of latching on to the narrative to kind of push it up, or are they just trying to kind of float things because they have sources they can't really say, but they want to make sure they get out in front of it in case something happens. They can kind of point back as they see. I told you guys. So, yeah, I like Nick Chubb. Bring him in, check his medicals. If he's healthy, what do you have to lose?
Right.
Exactly. That was your second question, wasn't it, Turtle?
It was pretty close. I was going to ask, like, if Ryan Poles called Lester up today and said, Lester, man, I think we're one move away. What is that one move? If you could make one move for the Bears, what would it be?
I get the gist. But yeah, I mean, if you got one move to make, from what's out there right now as free agency, there's not really a lot, obviously. You addressed quite a few needs in the draft. I think it would be another RB2 that has RB1 capabilities. I think Swift is a better player than what Bears fans think he is. His first 2 games last year were awful. Like he averaged like 0.2 yards a carry for his first 2 games.
Right.
That killed his average, right? He just looked awful after that. He's not a good inside runner. He doesn't have any power. He can't break tackles. Right. That's not who he is. But look what he did when he played for Ben Johnson a few years ago. Yeah. His production was probably his best ever. His yards per carry was pretty high. He caught the ball out of the backfield. He didn't get a ton of touches, but he was very productive when he had those touches. So I think Ben Johnson knows who he is as a player, and he's going to use him accordingly. So finding another guy that kind of comes in and kind of really splits those carries, maybe even take over those carries, because I think Swift's better as your third down guy. And if that's Nick Chubb, you may as well find that out.
Yeah. And I think, like I was telling people, we were kind of debating it on our show last week during the draft. When I think, a lot of people forget, like, obviously I'm not saying the Bears line is Philadelphia's line. Philadelphia's got one of the best lines in the league. But you look at what he did, what Swift was able to do when he was able to get the ball in space. Yeah. And use some of his attributes, like you alluded to. He's not a guy that's going to run up the middle. He's not going to break a lot of tackles and then be able to get away from guys. Like, he's just going to one of those guys that get in space, make you miss, and then run past you. Yeah. So, well, Lester, man, thank you so much. Like Tarbill said earlier, there's nobody better we could think of to be the first guest on our new show. You've been so great to us over the years, always making time for us, and hooking us up with Eric last week. All the things you've done for us, we really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, if you guys need something, let me know. I'm always around.
All right. Appreciate it, Lester. Before we let you go, you want to let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on social at Wiltfong Jr. Everything I write is at Windy City Gridiron, and all of my podcast video stuff is at Second City Gridiron.
Be sure to go check Lester and the team out over there at Windy City Gridiron, putting out a lot of great content. So, again, Lester, as always, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, and have a good night.
Take it easy. Anytime.
Lester Wiltfong Jr., ladies and gentlemen. What a first guest. Absolutely. Great Bears mind, always, as you said, just really willing over the years to talk with us about
and it'd be so flexible, as you know more than anybody from, doing a lot of the director producer stuff for us over here at Undefeated. Like, sometimes you get some guests that they're just very stuck in their ways, very like, I can get on only for this amount of time or only at this time. Like, Lester's never done that to us one time. I mean, there's times that we've felt like we needed to apologize because he spent so much time with us, and he's just like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm loving it. I love talking to you guys. It's just always such great insight. Always so just pleasant to be around.
Absolutely. As we said, no one better to talk Bears with, especially here on the debut episode of TnT's Dynamite Takes. So we got a little bit of time, I believe, right, before anyone else joins us. So
we got time here to kind of just talk about, you want to touch on the Cubs a little bit. We can do a little more Bears. You're driving the car, man. Wherever you want to take us, I'm along for the
driver's seat. Go. Well, in that case, why don't we go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll transition into a little bit of Cubs talk for a few and see where the night takes us.
We're
again,
down.
Guys, debut episode of TnT's Dynamite Takes here on USN. We will be back with you in 54 seconds after a word from one of our sponsors. All right, guys, and we are back right here on the Undefeated Sports Network. I am Andrew Tarbill. To my left is the man, the myth, the turtleless legend, Vincent Turtle Mucci, and John. We got a little guest hopping on with us as well, so he looks like he's a happy fella tonight. It's always good to see. But man, who would have thought at this point in the season we would be talking about how Chicago Cubs are? I mean, this team has put together a string of unbelievable wins against quality competition thus far through April. Obviously, it's still early. You can't allude too much at this point because down the stretch is really when teams are made. But you look at the Cubs, we're sitting at 19-13 after the game last night against Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, they had that what I would say was a freak accident there at the end of the seventh with
that was tragic.
The guy falling 21 feet out of the stands. Thoughts and prayers up to him and his family as he recovers. But man, sometimes a break in the game, like whether it be for a medical reason like that or obviously we saw the rain delay in 16 led to the Cubs winning the series. Obviously, you can't compare a game against Pittsburgh to that, but a break in the momentum sometimes is all one team needs to take the edge. But with that being said, I mean, look at how electric these Cubs hitters have been over the past month and a half, 2 months. I mean, it's been absolutely crazy. I think the Cubs have scored 10 or more runs 8 times this season so far, and that's the highest by like the next team behind them is 5 games behind that. So Cubs are definitely putting up a lot of runs, looking really electric. The one thing that does concern me though, and you know where I'm going with this because it's been my concern for the last few years, is the bullpen and the longevity that we can get out of that bullpen going down the stretch. I think the starters have played really well, but anytime a starter's called off the mound, I'm kind of cringing a little bit at this point, to be honest, bro. And, you look at obviously Steele going down for the rest of the season is killer to that Cubs rotation, but Brown's been really good. And, the rest of the guys have been very good as starters, but you shouldn't have to win a game 14-13, even though we can do it. Like, that's a testament to the bats, but we obviously have a lot of work to do with the bullpen down the stretch, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, unfortunately, it's the same story we've been telling about this Cubs for the last few years is there's no one you can rely on in the pen.
Right.
They went out and made some moves. I think that a lot of Cubs fans thought were going to help them do a lot of things. And unfortunately, they, continue to not pan out the way you'd like them to if you were a Cubs fan. It's nice to see that we can go out and win a game 14-13. Not that you want to make it a habit on relying on that ability, but it's nice to know that you do have that option. Obviously not going to happen every time, but you do have that ability in you. This offense has looked very, very dominant. so far at the start of the year. You saw, you lost the first 2 games against Pittsburgh. You had the game the other night. You had the error that cost you a couple runs, and then you bounce back today. You're going against possibly the best pitcher of baseball right now, and you go add, back to back home runs, and against a guy that's only given up 1 home run all year. Yeah, I know. It's very exciting. I know. And, the ability to do that, you start to feel like no matter who you're going against and who's on the mound against you, that they have a chance to win. And that's something we haven't felt here in a really long time, where no matter who they were playing, no matter who they were pitching again, or, pitching against them, you felt like they could beat them.
Yeah, man, it's really crazy that we're even talking about the bats being able to put up those type of runs. Nobody thought that that's where we would be at the start of this season. I mean, we all hoped, right? But I mean, you look at Bodie, you look at PCA, all these guys really are just gelling and working really well together at the right time. And it's been great to see thus far. It's been fun to be a Cubs fan. I mean, and that's rare to say. So hopefully that continues on here. One thing we've talked the last few years, and you guys who have followed us through other networks and other programs we've done together know that, since 16, obviously we've seen this downturn as stars go to other teams, and we try to rebuild with a young core. It hasn't really came to fruition up until this point, but now you're seeing some younger guys who are starting to make impact moves for the Cubs organization, and I think you do have some good depth through the draft the last few years as far as prospects are concerned. So we'll see what the future holds. I mean, baseball is really a unique long game in the sense that you're drafting for the future of your team 6 years from now. It's not
right.
It's extremely rare that you see a guy get called up to the majors in their first season after they've been drafted. I know Chris Bryant was, I think, in his second year before he was called up by the Cubs, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see a couple guys, that get fast tracked, like Chris Sale was for the White Sox, and different guys. Yeah. Nowadays it's even more uncommon because you got trying to hold on to the rights of a player as long as you can, so they kind of wait to bring a guy up, even though they feel like he could help the team. They wait till after that deadline to add that extra year to the contract. But it's crazy. Like you said, baseball's a very long sport, man. It's you look at a guy like Chris Sale, who was a Cy Young guy. Then everybody thought he was toast. He was done. And then he comes back, and I believe he didn't win the Cy Young last year.
Did he win the Cy Young last year?
I don't follow baseball as close as everybody, but I know he was up there with it. But even if he didn't, just to see him have those type of performances again after everybody thought he was done and going to be out of baseball. He goes from Boston to Atlanta, and he's able to do those things. And then just a matter from in as far as a long season, they've shown they have the offense. You would think, I would have to think that if the offense continues the way it is, they're going to be buyers at the deadline, and real buyers at the deadline, which is something we haven't seen in a long time either. Maybe they go add that piece as a start, whether it's a starting pitcher or some bullpen help. I would love to see them add one of each, just a guy that, whether it's in the bullpen or in the rotation, it's a guy that no matter when you give him the ball, you just expect him to go out and dominate the other team, whether that's as a starter or late in games, or, a key setup guy to get to the ninth, whatever. We've seen those teams in the playoffs. They say the game shrinks in the playoffs. You get to, a starter going 6 innings, and then if you got a few bullpen guys that can shut it down, that's how you win playoff baseball. And so, I just hope that, as a Cub fan, I hope that when it comes time, if this offense still has the Cubs in first place, that when the time comes, Tom Ricketts spends the money and gives them the green flag to go get those difference-making players that, imagine this team if they had gotten Alex Bregman and didn't just, kind of halfway be in on them. If they had been all the way in on them and they said, look, whatever it takes, we're going to sign you. So if Boston makes you an offer that's higher than us, we'll beat it. Like whatever it is, we'll beat the offer.
Right.
And honestly, I don't think that the Cubs thought that they were going to be this good this year. I think they thought they were going to be okay, but they've been way better than okay, and that offense has been, best in the league. So if you had added a guy like Alex Bregman, who's been on a tear to start the year, it really would have made a difference. So hopefully when the deadline comes around, they don't go halfway. They go all the way in this time on the deadline.
Hey, Aroldis Chapman's still playing. Wouldn't it be crazy if
it's crazy
Cubs,
too that he's
Cubs
getting
make the playoffs and they go back and sign him again?
It's crazy how that works. He's another guy. Everyone said, "Oh, he's done," and then he goes to Boston as a setup guy, and the guy gets hurt. And now they're saving games in Boston this year.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, he holds the record for the fastest pitch in MLB history at, I believe, 105.8.
I was saying it was like 104, 105, something like that. Yeah, I mean, he's got such an arm. He's dropped velocity the last few years, but he looks good again this year, man. He's found.
I was going to say, I think he's recorded some 103s this year, which still, I mean, you or I couldn't hit 103. I guarantee that.
I couldn't hit 73.
That's fair.
But no, I mean, so it's but
softball gets me sometimes. I mean,
but no, I mean, you said it best. It's a very long season. Hopefully hopefully the Cubs just keep doing what they've been doing and winning series. Yeah, winning series and being that top team in the division like they should be, and we can add those pieces that they need to really, really give this thing a shot this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said,
John heard somebody say White Sox, and he's all grumpy now.
That's fair. I'd be grumpy too. Although I do got to give the White Sox a shout out because their new City Connect jerseys look fire.
Those are fire.
I was like, they got Chicago on the front, not White Sox. I might have to order me one just for.
I know a lot of Cub fans that, like, when I posted them on Facebook the other day, they were like, I might have to get one of those.
Yep.
They're just so cool.
I'll just go custom and get my own last name on the
right. Then it doesn't matter. Like some people wouldn't even realize they were White Sox unless the White Sox wear them. Otherwise, you wouldn't know. It just says Chicago.
Right. I think it'll be interesting to see how that ties into the Bulls as well. Like obviously the crossover that they're
right. Reinsdorf figured he can't sell nothing under the White Sox name, so he would just make it look like the Bulls.
Right. So, what I was alluding to is, does that mean the Bulls are going to have a more White Sox themed jersey coming up?
Yeah, they better not.
They better not. You never know. Reinsdorf's all about the money, bro. You know that.
Even less. Yeah, don't get me started on the Bulls though, because that's a whole. That's
hard to be a Bulls fan.
It's a whole show's worth of anger and displeasure with the Bulls.
Yeah, let's wait at least a couple weeks before we get to that anger and disappointment. But man, I guess looking at where we're at as Chicago sports fans as a whole, we have some things to be excited about. The Cubs are playing well. Obviously, the Bears have made some huge moves this offseason and through the draft, as well as really putting together one of the best coaching staffs in football. I mean, Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen, Eric Bieniemy. Come on, man. Declan Doyle's obviously unproven at the offensive coordinator position, but you hear nothing but good things about him. As you said, Antoine Randall L. The list just goes on, man. It seems like every assistant that's on this team is just going to take these guys to the next level, and that's rare, especially in the NFL. So, you see guys that like Bieniemy who maybe would have gone for a higher role with another team, but settled a little bit to be a part of something special in Chicago. And I think that's huge because a few years ago there weren't high quality coaching candidates wanting to just flock to the Bears like they are now. And I think obviously Caleb Williams is a big part in that. Everyone recognizes that he's going to be a top tier quarterback in this league. It's just a matter of it's not will it happen? It's a matter of when it will happen. And I think we're going to see him take a huge step here in year 2.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most complete, if not the most complete, coaching staffs in the league, let alone that the Bears have ever had. So now it's just time to put the pieces together. Caleb Williams he's not going to have many excuses if it doesn't go good this year. They've put a lot around him. They've made a lot of moves to help get the most out of him and to help kind of accelerate that process with him. I heard they were talking about on I forget who it was. There was somebody from ESPN was on the radio, and they were saying that I think you're going to see you had like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and then he kind of went like this throughout last year, and now you're going to see him come back to like this and be compared to each other in the same sentence again, because Caleb's got so much around him, and he's been given so much that you don't really see that too much for a second-year quarterback be given the best play caller in football, a complete offensive line, receivers, tight ends, all the bells and whistles. Like now it's just time to go be great. Like it's time to go win football games and show everybody why you were the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. No excuses. I mean, they've left no stone unturned in making this team as good as they can for Caleb Williams to succeed. And I think they've done a great job thus far. Obviously Thuney was a huge acquisition on the offensive line. Yes, he is older. Jonah Jackson was a good acquisition as well. Then you add some depth there in the draft. I'm excited to see what these guys do. I almost really wish that Hard Knocks would have been on this upcoming season rather than last season because
it would have definitely been nice to see them do Hard Knocks this year. Versus, I mean, I get why they did it last year, but knowing what we know now, I would have rather see it be this year.
Right, of course. Yeah, I mean, you go from Matt Eberflus to Ben Johnson at head coach. It's just we finally have an offensive-minded guy. For how many years have we been talking about, like, we're tired of the same cookie-cutter BS head coaches, and now you finally get a guy in Ben Johnson who's really was pegged as an offensive guru throughout his years at Detroit. That was his offense.
Correct. And he had his hands all over it. Like, he controlled everything. I hear a lot of people that always tell me, like, oh, Turtle, what about Matt Nagy? Like, Matt Nagy was the hottest coaching candidate when they got him, and he was an offensive guru, and he did everything in Kansas City. Well, it's like, well, first off, if you remember right, nobody was talking about Matt Nagy as a head coach when the Bears hired him. Like, that was a typical Chicago sports move where it's like, we're the smartest guys in the room. We're going to go draft. We're going to go sign, draft players or hire coaches that nobody's even thinking about for their team. We're going to go get them and bring them here, and they're going to be great. And it looked great at first, and then the wheels fell off, and it fell off all at once. But so you're going to see, Matt Nagy was a guy that he was under Andy Reid. He didn't get to call plays, and when he did, he forgot to run the football in the playoffs that year. Now you're, like you said, you're getting a guy who not only did he have something to do with the Detroit offense, it was his offense. He ran he was the head coach of the offense and ran every single aspect of that offense.
I didn't come here to run the I formation is my favorite Matt Nagy quote.
Right.
only because I was at that game against the Chargers, and it's like that was the game I was on field to be a flag holder. So as awesome of an experience as that was, it was so disappointing to see the end result there. And the cool thing about that was I was on the field and I got a high five from Antonio Gates. Even though nobody was guarding him at that point in his career because he was just
he's
walking around out there.
One of the best to do it.
Absolutely. No, man, but I think we have a very bright future to look forward to here in the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
Before we leave, I want to say one thing. I think if the Bears do not make the playoffs this season, it's a loss. Like my standard, my bar is that they have to at least get a wild card seat.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all the moves they've made between the players, the staff, everything, at this point, like if you don't make the playoffs, and honestly, you don't not only do you not make the playoffs, but you don't compete for the division, like things went horribly wrong this year.
Absolutely. I think with that, my friend, we are at the 1 hour mark, so we can wrap up for the evening. We do appreciate.
Gary got stuck at work tonight. He said he's sorry to everybody that tuned in to see him. He'll make sure he jumps on with us here on one of the next episodes.
Yeah, hey, it's cool, man. Like you said, we alluded to earlier in the show, life happens, and
Life happens for sure.
some things are unavoidable. I mean, you got a flat tire today, so
Right.
Here we are though, and it was a great debut episode. Great chatting with you.
Yeah, definitely great to get back on and just chat with you and talk sports and do what we do.
Absolutely. We got each and every week, guys. We will be live here on Thursday evenings on the Undefeated Sports Network. So be sure to go like, subscribe, and follow on all major social media platforms. Now that we have launched the new show, we will be working to expand our social reach. In doing so, we will be prioritizing getting the audio versions available to you guys, whether that's through Spotify or another platform. More to come on that in the coming weeks. But again, we appreciate each and every one of you for joining in tonight, riding with us through the years, and now we're back, new look, but same great takes, so to speak. So we appreciate you all, and thank you for joining us. Have a great night, and we will see you next week right here on the Undefeated Sports Network. Good night, everybody.
Good night, y'all.
Whatever you want.